Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Actually, on the other side of the world, so I'm not sure what time it is over there. So what's today is a very exciting webinar. It's getting your organization ready for Microsoft Copilot. And this AI in general is a subject that's very close to my heart. And so I hope you find this enjoyable. So a little bit about me before we jump in. My name is Leon Godler. I am the Principal Cloud Evangelist at Cloud Direct. My role is to share my knowledge and experience about cloud with customers, colleagues and prospects to help them accelerate their cloud journey, whether that be adopting it for the first time or moving further up the cloud stack. I've plenty of experience in that space to help. I also take the insights that I get from my audience, and I share that with Cloud Direct and the product team to make sure that our products are resonating with the market. I am particularly active on LinkedIn. I've posted a few times today and yesterday. I'm very passionate about AI. That's the majority of what I post, right, is around AI. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn. I do not work in sales. I'm a free of charge resource that is here to help you. So what is Copilot? Well, Copilot is an ecosystem. It is an ecosystem of products. And effectively, the top half of the screen is what we would call the personal accelerators, things that help the individuals within their role. And on the bottom half of the screen tend to be more departmental or organizational level artificial intelligence enabled tools. So whether it's Dynamics, whether it's Fabric, whether it's the soon to be release security offering, whether it's Copilot for GitHub, or Copilot that's embedded in Power Platform, or Copilot that's embedded in Windows, which I think is still in preview, but I've got it on my laptop. These can be quite useful. Obviously, today we're going to focus on the top right-hand corner there, the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So, what is it? So it is a tool that is designed to help with everyday tasks within that helps you be more productive and creative. It's embedded within the apps. And what it does is it pulls together data, your business data that may be available in OneDrive or SharePoint, or indeed through the use of plugins, other areas, as well as your user level information, which it gets from a back-end system called Microsoft Graph, which I'll explain in a second, and presents that through, oh, and of course the large language model, GPT model, and presents that through to the apps. And these things allow you to be more productive. It can automate very common tasks, helps you generate content and do analysis, and allows you to talk with your data. This is kind of the talk with your data, I think, is the bit that's a significant game changer. There's also the business chat tool that allows you to roll out something more holistic across an organization rather than just focusing on the individual user productivity component. So what is Microsoft Graph? If this was the matrix, this would be the architect. This is the brain that connects all the apps together, as well as all the user information. So if you're in Microsoft 365, you had what was as your Active Directory. It's now Entra ID, and that contains your user persona, as well as things like your group information. And then you have your applications, Teams, Outlook, and the like, and the data that resides therein. It has access to all of that. And this is the beating heart and the enabler for how Copilot works. So having understood that Microsoft Graph has access to your user data and your business data, it feeds that into the engine that is Copilot. And then one of the things that is a little known component is Copilot supports an ecosystem of plugins. This allows for some extremely powerful capabilities to come into play. So, for example, rather than just have access to the business data that might reside within your Microsoft 365, you could pull in data maybe from your Salesforce or from your SQL databases that might reside in Azure. There's a whole suite of plugins that will continue to grow, and that extends the capability of the platform. And I cannot stress that's an area of so much potential. A really critical point is safety, ensuring that now Microsoft have their AI ethical framework, and the results of that is a safety mechanism to make sure that the responses are appropriate. And that comes as standard. And then, of course, the large language models. These large language models isn't just the chat model, the GPT. So, chat GPT, chat GPT is just a web page. The engine that sits behind it is something called GPT 3 or 4 or Turbo, and there are other components within the what was OpenAI. So Microsoft's 49% investment in OpenAI, $10 billion investment means all the innovations that are going on in that space become available in Azure and other Microsoft products. And Microsoft are committed to embedding AI into all of their products. So now you've got your user data, your business data, your safety mechanisms, and your AI models that allow you to interact with those elements. Potentially, you've got your plugins to connect to additional third-party services, all surfaced within your Microsoft 365 apps. This is really, really cool stuff. So what is it and how can you use it? And this is a bit I think that gets missed a little. So I'm going to just click through some of these so you can see the different Copilots in action.
Copilot in Teams makes every meeting a productive one. Here, you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize what's happened so far. Copilot summarizes who said what and what points were made, capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It is just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
So there we've just seen a little taste. So think about that. As the conversation is taking place, Copilot is monitoring what's happening. It understands the context of what's happening that allows you to query if you're participating in the meeting. If you weren't participating in the meeting, you can query with Copilot and it says, okay, these are the things that are discussed. These were the questions that are raised. These are the questions that didn't get answered within the meeting, because it understands the context of what's going on. So that's really powerful. Just a little anecdote on the side, because I'm an AI enthusiast. That voiceover sounded exactly like me, but it isn't me. It's actually an AI built to speak what I tell it to type. That's just some of the power of AI that sits outside of Copilot.
Copilot in Outlook helps you stay on top of email. Some emails are more important than others. Copilot can help you separate the signal from the noise and give you hours of time back. It helps you triage your inbox so you can prioritize the most important emails. And Copilot helps you on the go in Outlook Mobile. It can summarize long email threads. You can draft a reply, use data from an Excel file, and Copilot will generate a reply for you. You can edit it, you can make it more concise, change the writing style, or add more context. Now, all that's left to do is review the proposed response and hit the send button. Copilot in Outlook is a productivity game changer.
So again, I think this one's quite useful in terms of being able to accelerate your inbox. Whether you're having to go and draft things, you can say, what are the most important emails in my inbox? That's a very subjective thing, but it's capable of doing that. Which ones should I focus on a priority first? Can you provide me a draft from my top 5 most important emails? These are things that are going to be quite helpful. Obviously, you get full control and nothing is sent without your explicit permission, but it helps accelerate you. Again, these things, and I want to reinforce this, Copilot is a personal accelerator. Now, Word, I think, is an area that's going to be particularly interesting in terms of speeding up productivity.
Copilot in Microsoft Word can help you unleash creativity at work. Imagine you need to create a rock-solid proposal to win a business opportunity, and you don't have time for writer's block. You can use Copilot to draft a proposal based on your customer notes in OneNote, as well as another internal document. Copilot scans the target files and gets to work, quickly generating a first draft with all the key details from the files you provided. Now let's say you want this to look like your previous proposals. Copilot can give you a draft in the format you typically use. It inserts product images and pulls in relevant visuals from other files. You can include a short summary at the top of the document. And Copilot can make suggestions to strengthen the proposal, like adding an FAQ, which it will generate for you to refine.
So this is an area of Copilot I'm particularly excited about. I use AI quite a lot in my content generation. This is going to take it up a level, because you've got the ability to turn around and say, right, we've done a lot of sales proposals, and if it knows what a good sales proposal looks like, it has access to that, and it can start building out. Many sales proposals will probably include, value prop statements that are maybe more boilerplate and don't have a huge amount of change, whereas other things need to be contextualized. You can even prompt it to ask you questions to be more informed, so it can provide a more nuanced response that is more personalized to the customer. So that's another little known feature, that this isn't just about you talking to it. You can actually send it prompts, so it talks to you and asks you information so it can provide better output. Now let's look at Excel.
Copilot in Excel helps you make sense of all your data. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results. You start by asking Copilot
This is another area that I think is particularly back value for business. I mean, Power BI is even more sexy than that. But the concept of taking data and turning it into consumable information, that's what we're trying to do with Excel. We're trying to get to an information point. Having something that can look at data, analyze that data, allow you to query that data, produce visually appealing output, very, very useful. Now let's look at PowerPoint. So this one is going to be particularly useful for me, and the sake of a lot of time with my colleague George. I can produce very interesting presentations, but George makes them look professional. Having an AI that can do that, feeding it your template, being able to take knowledge from other parts of the business and visualize that in a way that is, again, turning data into information, really powerful. So now hopefully you've understood a little bit about what it is, how it works, and the kind of use cases and seeing it in action. So great, I'd like some Copilot, please. So what are the steps that you need to take? And I have to stress here to everyone listening, it is not as simple as just saying, I'm going to go out and buy a license. If you do that, you are running risks of a suboptimal outcome, and I'll explain why. So the first thing, obviously, if you want your car MOT'd, you take it to a garage. If you want to consume Microsoft 365 Copilot, you've got to be in Microsoft 365. So you would migrate your Exchange to 365 in your file servers and what have you, and you'd move your data into 365. Then it's able to be exploited, read, and utilized by AI. You want to ensure that you've got your correct licensing. As it stands today, there is an entry requirement. The way Microsoft have adopted AI is to, this is kind of version 1 of the release. And so initially it's for organizations that have managed support agreements of some nature with Microsoft EA or whatever it be. And the idea is, and the minimum entry is 300 users. That's a £9,000 commitment a month, which is not insignificant. However, that's a transient state. I predict in about 6 to 9 months, those barriers of entries will come down, and I look forward to it because in my personal subscription, I'm looking forward to buying one license for myself. And so it will become more accessible in time. But when we look at the use of those licenses, really think about the users that are going to make the most use of it. It's really going to be the knowledge workers. So you don't want to, I would strongly advise you not to give it to everyone. Give it to the people who are going to drive most value out of it. So frontline workers, call center workers, people like that are not necessarily the right audience for these sorts of tools. However, those frontline workers, people that create documents, that work in marketing, that work in sales, that work in the back office, these are people that have to use their brain to create and review content. This is definitely going to be useful for them. So ensuring the right licenses are applied to the right people is, and that's, of course, there are other parameters when it comes to 365 where that's a good idea also. And the big one is security. You do not want an insecure implementation. There are a suite of activities that you need to consider, and we'll go into those in more detail shortly, around what those best practices are for your tenancy. And that includes the data. You want your data, you want appropriate data to be circulated. Ultimately, if you're democratizing data, i.e. you want the data to be accessible to everyone, the last thing you want to be able to do is ask Copilot, how much is the chief exec on? And it provide an answer. Well, I imagine you wouldn't mind, but the chief exec probably would. The idea is it's about exposing the right data and getting data into the right places, and with the right governance structure in place, applying best practice to ensure that things are as they should be. Then you need to understand that if you're going to use this audience, and I do know organizations that were part of the beta program for Copilot, they saw an initial spike, but then kind of dropped off because people, they didn't explain what it can do and how you can use it and what the art of the possible is with Copilot. And it is significant. So once you've got that art of the possible, you've got your understanding, you've got your base foundation blocks in place. Now you want to plan for the rollout and any remediation activities that you might need to take, and empowering your users to make the most out of it. And then finally, once you've rolled that out and you've enabled Copilot, you've got all your security in place, you've got your data governance in place, you've empowered your employees to make the most use out of it, then they would hopefully make the use out of it. But Copilot also provides dashboards for you to monitor the usage of Copilot, so you know, because it's not an insignificant cost of a license, that people are getting the best value out of it. And if you find people are not making use of it, then the cost optimal thing to do would be to remove or repurpose that license to someone else. So I touched on the data component, and this I can't stress. You definitely want to do this. I was speaking to I did a roadshow event a couple of weeks back, and someone from the audience was explaining how a contractor had joined their organisation, put a chatbot together, made it available on their website, all AI empowered, but they didn't put, or he didn't put the controls and the data governance in place, and it was able to go and offer people the maximum discount codes available that it shouldn't have been doing. So, and then those started to go viral, and all of a sudden they're making loads and loads of sales at minimum margin. Otherwise they would be making a lot more margin. So actually the implementation of it cost them money because they didn't have their data governance in place. So how would you do this? Well, there are multiple data sources. If you are using plugins, that data source pool gets much larger. If you're not using plugins, then you're looking at Microsoft 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, and your traditional data that resides within 365. So we would look at auditing your data to make sure it's fit for purpose. What do we mean by that? Well, effectively, we're looking at assessing what is there and is it appropriate, so you can make an informed decision around whether that's the right data that should be utilised. You also want to look at making sure that it's up to date and it's appropriate, and removing any data or any duplicates to prevent any areas of inaccuracy and unreliability. So cleaning that data is appropriate. Integration. If you are going to use other data sources, maybe SQL Server, that would be an appropriate thing to do. Review, understand what is that data, is it appropriate? Do I need to triage that in any way? Because maybe there's something in a CRM that's appropriate, but maybe the commercials within that CRM is not appropriate to go and share. So understanding that is a good idea. And then, of course, the most important one is your security. Have you got your security controls in place? Microsoft provide a whole suite. The Secure Score is a very good place to go and start. Working with a partner is an excellent place to start also. But understanding that you are protecting your most sensitive data and ensuring that you're not communicating anything that would challenge your compliance obligations. Then you've got your governance. This is an ongoing process to ensure that the data is consistent and of quality and that the rules are being followed. You want to ensure that employees are able and enabled to access appropriate resources. If you don't give it any data, AI is an engine. Its fuel is data. If you do not give it the right fuel, or you don't give it enough fuel, you're not going to go very far with it. So ideally, you want to be able to give it lots of data to be able to deliver lots of value, but obviously the points above it, you want to make it appropriate. And then what we would do is look at the final step, which is another significant thing, is permissions audit. Do the right people have access to the right systems? If they do not, you need to put a remediation plan in place. The last thing you want to do is expose data to people that is inappropriate, and conversely, where data is appropriate, you want to make sure it is available. So understanding these core principles of your data strategy for the adoption of Copilot is significantly important. You don't necessarily need to do all the steps, because it may be you've already achieved a very high standard of data security within your 365 environment. It may be that you've already undertaken a skills and training and awareness program, you've already done your permissions audit, but holistically, these are all the consideration points, and where you have not considered them or you find a shortfall, that is something you absolutely want to remediate to get the best out of it. I predict that there will be organisations that will fail to do this, and I further predict there will be horror stories that come out as a result of it. Copilot can be incredibly cool and incredibly powerful, but make sure you are prepared. So finally, I want to just look at the use cases, people that might make and take good advantage of Microsoft Copilot. So in marketing and research, that can be particularly useful to empower and be able to trawl through information to provide a higher quality output. The chat integration that sits globally and with the ability to be able to plug into external systems, maybe travel or expense systems, this can further help bolster the capability. I use an application called Expensify. That's now got an AI capability, but if you can bring all those capabilities centrally rather than being little silos, that will deliver that much more power. So being able to do corporate administration, to be able to notify people of what's happening. So an AI is looking out for you. It's your virtual assistant that is letting relevant people know what's going on, what recordings they should look at from meetings that they may have missed. This is going to be delivering value. And that's also true for email as well. It can also be used in a Copilot lab environment for creating a greater, more effective enhancements. One of the things is you are going to communicate. You are using your natural language to communicate with these tools. Understanding some of the tricks you can use in having it communicate in an effective manner is called prompt engineering. So understanding some of those prompting techniques and communicating that with your user community, you will result in better outcomes. Being able to integrate this either from a travel perspective, if you want to book trains, you want to book flights, you can go and integrate that. Or if you're in the aviation industry and you have a sea of data around passenger and flight statistics, you can go and pull that data in, and that is one of the use cases that's being used with in the market at the moment. You may be an organization that has a software development capability, or you are looking to extend the capabilities of things that you produce in-house. Integrating that within 365 is useful, and there are lots of touch points with other plugins that will plug into an array of different things. So if you're in a DevOps space and you're used to using Jira, you can have plugins that will help pull that data in. So now AI is working with you in your software development processes. Legal is a huge one. If you can help things like automated document review. So if you've got a contract that comes in, big, weighty tome of documentation, having an AI be able to read that and summarize the key points or identify those clauses that have the highest risk, or a response that you need to make. I'm currently buying a house and there is a big back and forth between various solicitors. Being able to accelerate that process is going to result in a better outcome, not just for those legal professionals, but those people that engage with it, such as me buying a house. It helps accelerate that process. Integrating things like DocuSign into that workflow. AI can go and help with that. There are already tools with Power Platform that integrate directly with things like DocuSign. Putting that together with some AI can further enhance that capability. Sales, that's kind of a no-brainer in terms of being able to take data that exists and analyze that data and be able to chat with your sales data, and indeed understand which campaigns are being effective and how then to elevate and do your next campaign from insights that have been gathered and presented to you via Copilot. I'm going to flip through these last few. All these slides will be made available, but if you've got geographic systems and mapping systems, HR, IT, onboarding is another one. You can pair these with other products. If you think of the life cycle of employee onboarding, someone says, I would like to hire a new employee, someone goes and approves that request, someone writes a job description, someone then markets that job description. Ultimately, you go and interview a number of people. You will some candidates won't be successful and will drop off at the first hurdle, some will drop off at the second hurdle. Ultimately, you'll employ your candidate. That involves sending out a whole load of standardized documentation, being able to understand where things are in that lifespan. You can use tools like Power Automate to automate that employee onboarding process, and obviously it carries on way beyond there in terms of training and reviews and what have you. But understanding the life cycle of those, having tools like Power Platform to help automate those, and then having Copilot layer over the top to provide insights to HR professionals or IT services who may be onboarding employees and setting up permissions, having that kind of integration can be really, really powerful. Finance is an obvious one. When you look at maybe invoice processes, an invoice tends to arrive by email, usually in a PDF form. Or indeed we send them out. Understanding what data is going in and out and the flow of data, identifying, being able to read that information and be able to say, actually, I happen to know, because I've got access to other resources, that that invoice is for project A, B, and C, and needs to be subdivided, and it prepares that information in such a way that accounting now don't need to go run around to speak to other departments to understand what project codes this should be assigned to, or the nominal codes. Obviously, operational efficiency, that is part and parcel of the life cycle. Again, I go back to the point about data. If you're feeding it the data, then it can go and deliver better outcomes. That data might be your ITSM system. There is a plugin, for example, to ServiceNow. So hopefully that very, very, very long list, some of which will apply to you because they're generic. Everyone pays invoices. Many will send invoices. Lots of you will deal with legal, sales, marketing, and various other categories. It touches on many, many different use cases. So, Cloud Direct, why are we operating in this space? Well, we have an amazing relationship with Microsoft. There are only a handful of expert MSPs, and in the UK we've secured more funding, for example, than any other expert MSP. We have a whole suite of certifications and accreditations to our name that allow us to be a trusted partner of Microsoft, and we've recently been audited, and we've won awards, in fact, for our capability to execute against the Microsoft vision. The reason I'm positioning all this is because we would like to make available to you a free of charge innovation workshop. So rather than a generic webinar like this, we can actually contextualize the conversation into your business specific needs. So we'll go through a process of explaining what is the art of the possible with Copilot. Why is it relevant? What strategies should you employ? We have a structured workshop process that we will go through to take you on the journey specific for your organization. And we will provide a standardized set of output to allow you to successfully go and adopt, identify any shortfalls, and the steps you need to take to move on. If you are interested in one of those workshops, you can follow the link or the QR code or contact us on the details on the right. That's it for now. If you do have any questions, I will check with Kim if anyone has dropped any questions into the mix at the moment, but if not, feel free to reach out to us. So Kim, have there been any questions raised?
Hi Leon, yes, there's quite a few, and okay. I'll start with the first one. How can you ensure UK GDPR compliance if Copilot is listening on Microsoft Teams calls?
That's a really good question. So the first thing is there will be a data sovereignty component. Your tenancy will reside in a particular place. If there is, I referred to earlier about the safety mechanisms that were in play. That is part of the component that addresses that. So if you remember early on in the slides, I showed that specific AI safety mechanism that is responsible for assisting in that component. So whilst you're organizational, John said this, Jane said that, John is the chief exec, but it's not going to be customer or patient identifiable or personal identifiable data. Hopefully that assists, but this is why, I mean, your point is incredibly important. This is why that security step is so important, and you don't just go and buy a license and turn it on, because that will be a recipe for a suboptimal outcome. What's the next question you have, Kim?
The next question is, could you give some context of how different roles could utilize it? For example, our analyst and admin staff to make them more productive.
So, yes, Yes, so it depends on whether you want to go and utilize the plugins. So data analysts are going to find this incredibly powerful, especially those that want to, beyond, obviously you've got the Excel Copilot. My personal favorite Copilot is the Power BI. The dashboards it can create in like 60 seconds would take me 10 days to go and create. It's really, really good. And then you provide interactive, whereas Microsoft Excel tends to be fairly static in its view of data. Power BI allows you to slide things up and interact with it. Just move your mouse over and it hovers and changes views and graphs and pie charts and what have you. You can query the data and ask it specific questions. You can tell it, that's great, can you look at this this particular dashboard that we've done before that's in our corporate colors and branding, and make sure this new dashboard that you've created conforms to that particular style. So from a data analytics point of view, the chat with your data, honestly, I preach all the time, if you are going to adopt AI, the simple and best and most effective one that you can adopt, and should be, I encourage people to do it as their first step, is a chat with your data AI. Copilot is an example of that. There are many, many other ones that can achieve, chat bots that can do similar things. I built one this morning. It's very, very compelling and can deliver a lot of value and helps build that trust. Going back to the admin side of things, I mean, you've got the general productivity, but admins can build in plugins. So imagine you talk to Copilot and say, which VMs are, it's 6 o'clock, which VMs are under the greatest load. Can you power VMs down? When you've got that level of integration going on, that could be particularly useful. Or indeed, as the example I gave earlier around ITSM, those are other powerful use cases for administrators to be able to be more productive and gain insights to things that perhaps they might have missed or take them longer to go and find, resulting, when these things are done quicker, it results in a better quality experience for the end user. Any more questions?
Yes, there's quite a few more. We have one. How would you look at it from a Fabric standpoint, and do you need to be fully in Azure, or can it be hybrid?
So are we talking like Fabric here as opposed to Copilot?
I believe so. So
Fabric, I'm a big fan of Fabric. If I think about the AI journey from beginning to end, you've got the bookends, and then if you sort of remove the bookends, a lot of what's left behind is what Microsoft Fabric takes care of. It's the journey in terms of accessing your data. So one of the end states, if you want to visualize your data and you're related to AI, Power BI is part of Fabric. So you do have that Copilot, but other ones are coming on stream. Everything is going to be infused with AI going on. So you'll have your ability to connect to multiple data sources with Fabric. You'll have the ability to go and then transform that data in a way that allows you to be compliant, back to the earlier point about being GDPR compliant, processing that data according to the governance standards that you want to do to ensure that, is there any value in a particular AI outcome in having telephone numbers and addresses? Possibly not. It might be other sort of commercial metrics that are more valuable, not individual identities. And then being able to store that on a platform and provide the ability to do data engineering. Or if you want to take it a step further and create your own custom AI models with Fabric, you can, there is the ability to do data science. So a colleague of mine, Dr. Victoria, she's going to be able to speak more eloquently than I can, but effectively taking your data and training a custom AI on your data. So when it sees a new information based on its learnings, it can go and provide insights or actions or recommendations to the next step. Now, some of those that I've mentioned don't have AI enabled yet. Some of them inherently are about building an AI, and like I say, Power BI does have that. So hopefully that answers the question. If it doesn't, feel free to reach out to me. You can contact through the details on the screens here, or reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, and I will try to give you a more robust answer with a bit more context. What was the next question, please, Kim?
The next one is, my understanding is that M365 Copilot is not available to education tenants in the UK as yet. As I work in education, do you know how I can trial Copilot?
Good question. If you know the answer, please tell me. The short answer is, as of today, you can't. So it is available to certain organisations. As I tried to explain earlier, Microsoft are kind of viewing this, it's almost like a beta program. It's just a little bit harsh to call it a beta program, but it's rolling out initially to larger organizations who have a Microsoft kind of support agreement of some mechanism in place. So Microsoft, the reason Microsoft want to do that is when there are any issues with it, they want to have that insight, because they will provide support. They would have that insight and they can go and update and improve it before it is available. So today, even I can't gain access to it. I've got access to, I've seen it and what have you, but I don't have a subscription to it. But that is just a transient position. From my understanding is, as they've gone through the learnings through that early adoption phase, the barrier to entry will be lowered, including access to education, including access to business premium users, rather than just the E3, E5 SKU users. So unfortunately, I don't have dates for that. All I can say is, within 6 to 9 months, I think it will be available at a much, much lower entry point. At what point it crosses the threshold for your particular organisation, I'm afraid I can't say. Any other questions, Kim?
Yep, and the last one is, how would we integrate it into our CRM system?
So depends what CRM system you've got. If it's Dynamics, that is going to be a very trivial path. You already have effective Dynamics has an extensible network of tools in terms of the Power Platform. That's kind of how Power Platform came into being. It's the ability to kind of customize and extend the capabilities of Dynamics, and then became a sort of product in its own right with a lot more capabilities. And then obviously AI is also infused with that. So being able to bridge those two would be a relatively trivial activity. If you have a different CRM, it depends on what it is. There are I'll tell you what I'll do. As a follow-up to this, I'll provide a link to the plugins. Obviously, if I don't know your specific CRM, so for example, I doubt there's one for the open source Sugar CRM at the moment, but other CRMs that they will be there, and ERP systems and what have you. So I'll take an action, or I tell you what, I'll post it on my LinkedIn. So you can go and find it there, and it'll be a link to all the different plugins that are available. What I will say is the plugin ecosystem, it's early days. It's only been, this product has only been sort of live 5 minutes, and it does take a little bit of time for people to develop plugins, but they are dropping day by day. We will have many hundreds, probably thousands of plugins as we move forward. So I'll provide you a list to the repository of plugins that are available, and hopefully your CRM is on that list.
That's all the
Anything else,
questions
Kim?
Nope, that's everything.
Okay, so just to conclude then, if you are interested in an innovation workshop, please reach out on the details attached. If you're interested in these slides, again, please reach out. We're here to help you. And if you're interested in hearing my musings on AI, then please follow me on LinkedIn. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you.